watch as Iranians storm the governor's office in Fasa. Despite the Islamist regime reacting brutally to widespread protests over the cost of living, killing 7 demonstrators, protests are now coming into their 6th day. Overnight, Iranians took to the streets chanting "Scream for your right," and the regime will be toppled. US President Donald Trump is locked in a war of words with the Iranian regime, warning he is locked and loaded to intervene should the mullahs continue to meet protesters with violence. Ali Larijani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, hit back at Trump, denouncing American interference and warning any move to topple the regime will sow chaos across the entire region and the destruction of American interests, the blame for which would lie at Donald Trump's door. Protests began when shopkeepers in the capital, Tehran, went on strike over high prices.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind. The more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Action has now spread out across the country in a serious test to the regime. Activist Lily Mu says this is a national uprising.
Lily, we've seen protests in Iran before. Do you think these ones are different?
This one's definitely different because it's organically inspired from the markets, from the bazaar of Tehran, where ordinary Iranians who are not necessarily university lecturers or think tank leaders or newspaper editors who are putting a narrative over the movement of people. Iranian civilians came to the streets of Iran calling out for their dignity, calling for the regime change, and calling for the return of the Shah. They are on purpose, in English, calling out for King Reza Pahlavi. And this is a crime under the Islamic regime. People in Iran over the past 2 months have been murdered openly and publicly at the hand of the regime for siding with the Pahlavi family. While there is Iranian political prisoners in Iran in their tens and thousands who are getting tortured, abused, and silenced under this regime's brutal force, Iranian people have had enough, and in spite of that fear lurking over their lives and their family, in spite of knowing that the worst brutal punishments could be facing them, including death, they are coming to the streets of Iran and they are calling down with the dictator, death to the dictator, and return of the King Reza Pahlavi.
Why now, Lily? What has triggered this? I mean, as you say, it's been very unstable for a while now, but now this just really seems to have taken hold.
Yes, so the regime is currently hollowing from within. The military staff from both the IRGC, Basij, and the Artesh, which is the Iranian national military, they have defected against the regime and they have come on social media. Over the past month, we have seen active campaigns of social media account holders from within Iran with their uniforms coming in, showing their cards and saying, we pledge allegiance to the king and to the people, and our work and our duty is to protect Iranian people. What we saw on the first day of the uprising in Iran, in Hamadan, a young man who is now believed to have been one of the security forces from Basij, he refused to take action against Iranian people, and in an absolute act of bravery, he stood up from his bike, sat in front of the Basij forces on their motorcycles and their arms, and he called for a sit-down and joining of the people. And if that act of bravery is not a representation of unity between Iranian people, I don't know what is. Iranian people are risking their lives calling for regime change right now. And this time, they have America on their side, as we saw President Donald Trump tweeting recently, unlike the days of Obama and President Biden, when the accolades were handed out to the oppressors of Iran and the oppressors of the international community. The same terrorist organization that is destroying the Middle East is now crippled, absolutely crippled, and even they cannot come to the rescue of this regime.
Now, it would be a far safer world were this regime to fall. I think everyone watching this television show can see the evil that the IRGC get up to, the evil that the Ayatollah spreads around the world.
Yes,
is there a risk, however, if the West, and particularly if America, is seen to support the revolution? It could be painted as an American intervention. It could be painted as something that foreigners want against Iran, and then the Iranian regime can say, oh, be Iranian, don't be American, stand with us. It could almost be counterproductive.
So this kind of narrative has been spoken out quite a lot over the past 47 years, ever since the inception of this regime. Let us not forget that this very regime was an inception of a foreign intervention from the far left, from the French and American administration at the time, who brought in Khomeini, and they betrayed their ally, their true ally from the Middle East, the one man who held Middle East intact and away from terrorism and stopped Islamization of the Middle East. The one man who was a Muslim leader, he was a Muslim king in Iran, and he, 5 years after the formation of Israel, accepted and profoundly helped Israel become a unified and a sovereign country as it truly deserves. And that act put Iran in a position where all of those anti-imperialists who lost the war in World War II, who lost their Soviet reign, claimed Iran and wanted to create a Soviet Islamist Marxist group. That same Soviet Islamist Marxist group is now fighting the British flag in the UK. Let us not forget the Palestinian flag has stormed this country, and UK deserves to stand.
It does have very wide-reaching effects around the world. You mentioned Russia backing the Iranian regime,
yes.
China obviously with the fuel as well, and the effects we're seeing on the street. We know that Iran has targeted British citizens on our streets.
Including myself, absolutely. Absolutely. So one thing I want to make sure that the international community who is listening to your incredible news channel today is that from Bondi Beach to Washington, D.C., to Manchester, to Paris, to Amsterdam, to the entire international community and the free world, this regime has its jihadist supporters in all shapes and colors, in all forms and walks of life. And we have to stand together, united, and remember that patriotic duty for country matters, and Iranian people are seeking out with their patriotic duty. They want to save their country from an Islamist regime. It is an Islamist regime and it's a terrorist regime, and they are brutally killing our people. They killed children last night. We have had more than 8 confirmed deaths in Iran today. And I want to make people understand that this is not just an uprising in major commercial cities of Tehran and Isfahan and Tabriz. This is an uprising in all of the rural cities in Iran. More than 72 cities in Iran have taken part in this uprising. And they're not just calling for regime change, they're calling for the downfall of Khamenei, and they're calling for the return of King Reza Pahlavi. And to that day, I pray for the day when Iran is free and Iranian people can be a part of the international community as they have been in the diaspora. Let us just remember that Iranians are our friends.
Brilliant.
A really significant difference between those protests a few years ago that were perhaps seen as more elite, this being more widespread, one to watch. Well, Lily Moo, thanks indeed for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Very passionate there. But Lily has faced death threats herself, despite living in this country, in theory, being safe and sound.
These protests are the largest the country have seen since 2022, when morality police were accused of killing Mahsa Amini in custody after arresting her for going out without wearing a hijab. Nick Dunning, GB News.